Hi, everyone. This is Joshua Hoffman, and welcome to another episode of the Masters in Marketing Agency podcast, where we deconstruct the why and how agency owners found their success and discuss a few things they learned along the way. Today, I have Jacquelyn McManus, the founder and CEO of KJ Media, a full-service agency that helps trucking businesses streamline and optimize their driver recruitment process through digital media. Welcome, Jackie.
Thanks, Josh, for having me.
Of course, in your sunny California. I guess has not been so sunny lately. You've been getting your snow.
I know it's been raining like we live in Seattle. So I'm so happy that the weather is finally turning a corner. We're in 70 weather and sunny. And now it makes sense why I'm out here and not in New York City right now, because there was a whole week that New York City and Palm Springs was the same weather. And so it finally turned that leaf. So I'm happy about that.
I think you guys might need it in California too. So
yes, absolutely.
You can drink a little bit more water now. Where I want to start out with is, I guess, a good weather thing, which is you were an athlete in college. You played lacrosse.
Mm-hmm.
And I always like starting here because I think that sports and entrepreneurship really go hand in hand.
I agree.
The first question I want to ask is, what kind of lessons did you learn playing lacrosse, whether high school, in college, or whatever, that you brought to your marketing firm?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I couldn't agree more. That's actually when I look at bringing on and staffing up new team members, I actually look at whether or not they played sports, because sports to me, it is something that it's teamwork, right? And it doesn't matter where you are, on the lacrosse field, defense, offense, you're working together as a collective to the same goal and mission. And so for me, playing lacrosse, I'm from Long Island. So when you come out of your mother's womb, you're cradling a lacrosse stick. Everyone plays lacrosse. That was very much what was instilled in me. And really, I think from the early years, it taught me structure and accountability. So you had to show up on Saturday mornings at 7 a.m. at 14 years old, right? Where you want to sleep till noon because your body's growing. And you have accountability because you don't want to let your teammates down. And so that really was instilled in me in the early years. And then as I got recruited to play for American and play lacrosse there, I was a freshman and ended up starting by the end of the year, and then was named coach captain by my sophomore year. And I believe it's something about building up your team and making everyone feel as if they have full autonomy of what they can do, but we're doing it as a collective. And so I try to take a lot of that and I build that into my team. And so that, everyone has their own responsibilities, right? The goalkeeper's the goalkeeper, defense is defense. But at the same time, we're going to work together towards the same mission. And for me, lacrosse has been something that I still every day thank that I was lucky enough to be a part of two great teams, one in high school and one in college, so that it really taught me the framework of, accountability, showing up even when you don't feel like it. I think that's a big one. And building a team, and then ultimately leadership skills by being the captain of the team. When you're having a bad day, or if you're having a bad quarter for your business, it's on you to build up your team and to make sure that you're truthful about what's happening, but at the same time, there's opportunity as a collective to take these opportunities, like these, when the one door shuts, there's more opportunities going. And so, I love being a part of the lacrosse team, and I wish I could still play.
Yeah, amen to that. I couldn't agree more. I think what sports does a great job is it gives you like a platform to study and execute on, like practicing soft skills. So, I mean, you mentioned a lot, like motivation, discipline, teamwork, grit, like all those things. Yes, we can practice it with our significant others, or we can practice it with, anywhere. But I think, like, especially because it is quantitative and often qualitative, that you can really practice and hone those in sports and then bring them to the rest of your life. So, no, I couldn't agree more. So trucking,
Yes.
How the heck did you get into trucking? And tell us a little bit more about your firm.
You know what, Josh, is so funny. A lot of my best friends, they are not in the trucking industry, and they always be like, why a business in trucking? What? Well, guess what? The pandemic happened, And they're like, now I get it. When everyone was laid off, our business doubled in size. So I was recruited after college to work for a truck driver staffing agency. This was 2007, breaking on 2008. And we're on the forefront of the major recession that was about to happen. I think we were about maybe a month or two in at that point. And I said to the recruiter, I was like, truck driver staffing agency, what does that even mean? She goes, just give it a shot. It's a great opportunity. I walked in, I met with the CEO. And he was a previous truck driver who then started this business, and he grew the business. And he said to me, he goes, you see what you're sitting on? I go, yeah, a chair. He goes, you see what you're drinking out of? I'm like, yeah, water bottle. He goes, where did that come from? And I said, Target. He's like, where did it come from Target? And how did it get there? I'm like, a truck. So he's like, and I'll never forget that conversation with Bill Crowley, because maybe 15 years ago, and that still stands in my mind. And that's how I explain why I'm in this industry, because after we eat, wear, drive, it comes through a truck. And so freight is responsible for 76% of all transportation in the United States of America. And then through working with that business, I really fell in love with the trucking industry. And there's an old joke in the industry. It's like, once you're in, you don't get out. Like, a lot of people like hop industries, not in trucking. I mean, it's kind of this, definitely is forms of a good old boy club. So being a younger millennial female, there's been challenges for sure, but with challenges, like I was mentioning earlier with Lacross, there's opportunity. And so about 10 years ago, actually this May, I decided at 26 to start my own business. I saw a big need in the industry for marketing agencies niche to the trucking industry, right? It's not sexy, it's not glamorous, but our freight still needs to move. So that's when I decided to start my own business. And, it's been one heck of a ride since.
What's it like being a female in a male-dominated industry? I'm sure that's a common question. So I apologize if you get that all the time, but, I'd like to learn a little bit more.
Absolutely. I could say this. About 6 months ago, I was at a client's office, and we were with the leadership team. And I looked around the room, and there were 8 females out of 10 executives in that room, me being one of them. And I said, can we just pause for a minute? This was not happening 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It was a really cool, one of those like bone chilling moments. Because when I started in the industry, I, raised the rate. I kind of got promoted very quickly. So I was an executive for the staffing agency, and I think there were 7 of us. I was the only one that was mid-20s and then a female. We were dealing with, the white older males. And so I've never let that stop me by any means. A lot of people, I think sometimes, get deterred by that. But for me, I think there's opportunity, right? Because, I think it's 47% of the workforce are female. In the trucking industry, we have an association, Women in Trucking, that I'm a part of. When I started, maybe 6% overall from executives to drivers. Now it just got released, 70% are females in the space. And so if anything, I feel like I'm a part of the movement to help bring in more females into the industry. 70% of my staff is females, not by qualifications, right? But by choice and by the work that they deliver. And so it's an exciting opportunity because it's only going to go up, right? I mean, has there been weird moments? Absolutely. But, with that, you just, having a strong backbone and knowing who you are and what you can bring to the table, I think is always key.
Do you have any best practices for weird moments?
Smile and say, no, thank you. I'm your daughter's age. You have a daughter?
Well, speaking of that, actually, starting any company at 26 is a pretty big task. What kind of gave you like the motivation and the know-how at that time to feel like you could start a company?
Well, I started it with my ex-business partner at the time. And, I think one thing that I will always be grateful for, and I bought her out recently, but the one thing I'll always be grateful for is starting a business at that age. I don't know if I would have confidence doing it alone at such a young age. And so having, a business partner who was then my best friend to really support each other during the low moments, because there are a lot of lows in the beginning. It really took us, we're talking social media to, 65-year-old males and why they should be on it 10 years ago. It wasn't the best response immediately, right? That's totally transformed. But there were so many low moments that it took us about maybe 2 years to really get that trend and really get that momentum. So I think for me, it was really about having someone, and I like to have fun. So having fun while working, I like to combine those. Call me crazy, but I do, because I feel like we should enjoy what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. So having fun, taking those learning lessons, and then having a partner really did help me a lot in building the business in the first couple of years.
I don't think even on audio only, I don't think it takes much to realize that that you like to have fun. Can we take a step back now? Can you tell us a little bit more about your firm? And
Yep, absolutely. Yep. So we are a digital advertising agency. We help trucking companies with their brand messaging, their social media presence, managing their job boards, lead generation, to help them attract and retain truck drivers. Right now, the industry is about 86,000 short of truck drivers. So a big mission of what we are doing right now with KJ Media, we're partnering with companies to help companies show a career path. The biggest issue, if you think about it, Josh, when we were in high school, unless you're in the industry, you really don't know about it. It's not like plumbing, electricians, there's a trade school. And so now we're actually doing a lot of initiatives to go to the high schools. And, legally you can't have your CDL license till 21. What happens though between 18 to 21, if folks aren't going to college, you get into trouble, and then you can't get your CDL. So what we're doing is partnering with companies, having them recruit at 18, right out of high school. They work the warehouse, they work the dock, they work there for about 4 years with a company. At 21, companies are then paying for that person to get their CDL. And then from there, depending on what that person wants to do, they could stay in the truck driver position. But there's so many opportunities for advancements in this space and to make really good money. So we're really trying to bridge that gap to bring in, because baby boomers are retiring. Trucking is not really considered the most sexy industry in the world, but it is cool in that the fact that everything we eat, drink, and where it does come on a truck, and it's necessary for the economy. So a lot of what we do is the branding and try to rebrand the image of the driver, and partnering with larger firms and medium-sized firms to help them get their message across.
Okay, so interesting, because first thing you said, the only thing I knew about trucking in high school was that my wrestling buddy's dad was a trucker, and he would and all I knew is he had these long hours sometimes, and he made every match. So I don't know if he was able to kind of move around based on his son's wrestling schedule. But that was literally the only thing I knew, to your exact point. And then even now to your second point, I have a friend, obviously I won't say his name, that he could not really keep a job. He didn't enjoy any jobs. He, he didn't like having bosses and everything. And then finally, I forget which shipping one it is, but one of the FedEx or one of those, that he ended up getting a job there. He was a driver for a little bit, and then he went to managing, and he loves it. It's his first job that he's kept for more than 1 year, and now he's in year 4 or 5, I think, and he's gotten promoted a few times. So I couldn't, even me, I've had experience in kind of not knowing the trucking side, but seeing a lot of my friends and their parents be successful in this, that maybe they weren't going to be successful in a few other things that they just didn't.
Absolutely. Yeah. And a desk job isn't for everyone. And that's what's really cool about trucking, is that, at 21, you get your CDL. It's getting the experience the first year is the hardest part, right? It's OTR work. But if you're 21, 22, you could also pair up with a buddy, one of your best friends, and you can travel the United States, all 48 for a year, and you're getting paid $85,000 to $90,000 a year with presumably no student debt, right? No college debt. That's a big issue now. People are coming out of college with $200,000 worth of debt, and they can only get a job for 40 grand a year. That's a desk job. So there's just such an opportunity to travel and explore the country as a young person and get paid to do that. And as you increase your, kind of getting, more badges, being experienced for a couple more years, your pay rate increases. And, a lot of my clients to date, they were CDL drivers, and they are now CEOs of, the top 100 trucking companies in the country. And so that's a prime example of you really have the ability to control your own destiny in this industry, which I think is so cool because there's so much opportunity from truck driving. If you could become, interested in finance, working that, career path. And so that's really what we want to bring to light is, how important that is. And if you think about it, let's talk about COVID. Finally, mainstream media is saying, thank you, truckers, because, traditionally the idea of a truck driver is this, older, flannel, greasy person. And it's not that, right? And so we were finally, as a media as a whole, recognizing what drivers do, which I was so excited about because it's something I've been talking about for so long. But it was exciting to see the recognition that drivers were finally getting because it's well deserved.
No, that's a great point. And throughout this, like, you guys brand yourself as a full service agency, and you guys, clearly do more than just recruiting. So did you start with one service and then grow into a full service agency, or did you kind of start with a lot of services? What did that look like?
Yeah, so our first service was video. And I'll never forget, I was in the ports of Newark. I don't know if you've ever been to Newark, in the trucking space. And I called on a company, and I think we were like 2 weeks into starting our business, and we started pitching video and video assets and why they're necessary. And that was our first gig. So as soon as I closed the deal, I had to find a videographer. So so we did that, and it went really well. And then from there, we did more videos. Then we switched really into lead gen. So for trucking companies to get qualified leads from drivers, because a lot of the Indeed.coms, the Monster, drivers aren't on there, and drivers don't have resumes. They just don't. And so we basically streamline that whole process for our clients so that they only get the high intent, high qualified lead. Now that service is what really put us on the map and has transformed the business, over the last 10 years. So we really lead with that. We still do video. We do it remotely, which is great. Thank God for technology. And then social media. We run all of our clients' social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok. Drivers love TikTok.
And you're on a radio show.
Yes. Yep.
Called, I guess, Recruitment and Retention Attention. Is that
yeah,
right?
It's Road Dog Trucking, channel 146. It's a station that's dedicated to the trucking industry. And I've been on the show for about 7 years. And it's so cool because it gives me an opportunity to talk to drivers. And I'll ask them, what attracted you to a certain position? Why are you staying with your company? And I take that information and we give that information back to our clients. So for example, a big movement in our industry were these sign-on bonuses, right? And these sign-on bonuses were 10 grand, 15 grand, 20 grand. And a lot of our clients wanted us to advertise that. A couple months go by, and the more drivers I'm talking to, they're like, when we see a company that's offering that amount of money, our first thought is, what's wrong with them? Why do they need to allure us in like that? Why is that not throughout the whole, W-2 of the annual salary? And so we actually have seen that diminish over the last two years, where now clients are taking that sign-on bonus and they're incorporating it into their full W-2. So, yeah.
So the money's still there. The money,
The money's still there. It's just rephrasing it. Exactly.
Okay, because I was like, wait, are these guys just like now losing 10,000?
No. It's just a different way to restructure it.
And I guess if you're going to have a radio show or have clients through the radio, I suppose Truckers is probably the number one best audience that you can have.
Oh, yeah.
How did you guys get your first customer?
Knocking on doors. So, good old fashioned. I wore my heels and we jump on the back of docks. I'll never forget one time we visited a fish company. Have you ever been to a fish company? Oh my gosh. We had to put these like rubber boots on and the hats and, coming from the industry 5 years prior, I already built relationships in the space. So I was able to leverage the current relationships that we have. Like most businesses, I really truly believe trucking specifically, everyone's about 2 degrees of separation. If you've been in the space for about 10 years, you know of that person or vice versa. And so we've been able to build our business, obviously through sales, but also referrals, which has been fantastic.
So I was going to ask how you get new customers now. Is that the main way that you guys get new customers now?
Yep. We do a lot of LinkedIn. Our social media is very, very present. Newsletters. Our biggest, where I sit, I'm all about educating the industry on the whys. Just because it's challenging for a director of recruiter to figure out the 75 different job boards out there, right? And so we like to explain how to simplify things. So we've been able to, on average, increase recruiter productivity by 80%. I mean, right off the bat. So companies are seeing complete ROI within the first 90 days of working with us. And that makes me happy, right? Because we're actually truly able to like reshape organizations and make people's jobs easier.
Oh, no, I love that. And a few questions that I tend to ask towards the end. So first one is, if you had to teach something to other marketers, what would it be?
I think the biggest thing I would recommend is finding a niche, leaning into that niche, owning that niche. Clearly, that's what I've done with the trucking industry. And if I were to go, RFP head to head with a company that's not niche to the trucking company, 9 out of 10 will win it. And it's just because we have done it for so long. But really leaning into that niche, going to associations, public speaking. I do a lot of public speaking and educating that niche specifically so that you really can become that thought leader. I think the biggest mistake I see from companies just starting is being too broad. And a lot of people shy away from that. So if you find a niche, lean into it, get on the boards, do your public speaking. I've driven a truck before myself, do it all in that niche specifically. And then if you want to branch out, right? Like, absolutely. Like we've been branching out as well, because that's organically what happens. So, but my biggest advice would be definitely finding a niche.
Man, I've said this before, but I wish I had you before I started my first company, because I think that was probably the biggest issue. Like, we did fine. But like, I think what really kind of halted our growth was that we didn't start a niche. We were booking software, and we tried to go to any venue that had groups. So restaurants and bowling alleys and event spaces and everything. And I wish we just stuck with bowling alleys at first and then grow from there. So could not agree more with that. Also, thank you for getting that suggestion or that in there, because I had the note of the video on your LinkedIn for National Entrepreneurship Day advice, and you said find a niche and lean into it. And I just didn't know how I was going to squeeze it in here. So thank you for
same wavelength.
Exactly. What do you enjoy talking about the most that you normally don't get an opportunity to talk about?
Oh boy, I'm talking all day, every day. Let's see. I think I always stress the importance of building a team. And I think that goes back to my Lacrosse days. Just building a team, finding people that you enjoy working with too, is huge. There's always that mentality, sales versus ops. and the salespeople are throwing things, as much as we get at the wall to see what sticks, and the operations team is like, no, we can't do that, or it's two different mindsets, and for my culture, it's very much about marrying the two, and making sure that everyone is on the same page. There's going to be disagreements, right? There's going to be challenges. That should happen. If it doesn't happen, then that's another issue, I personally think. I think it's really important to, raise concern where and constantly question what your process is. Even though it's working and your clients like it, what else can your company do to make it more efficient, make it more streamlined, maybe take more off your back? And so I do enjoy talking about, ways to find efficiency, because I'm a fast New Yorker, so I'm all about, let's get it moving and grooving. And, time is our biggest asset that we have. So how do you give yourself more time in a day? And I think I see that so often, that entrepreneurs are working 17, 18 hours a day. And I mean, granted, that did happen when we started the business, but we had to find ways to streamline it because it wasn't sustainable. Because burnout is a real thing that happens really quick. Especially, one thing I've noticed too, Josh, is that you ever heard the phrase analysis is paralysis? There is so much information out there these days that sometimes I have to stop myself, because there's too much information on how to run your business, or how to, I'm signing up for these webinars. I'm like, why am I even signing up? Things are right? I always believe in learning, but because there's such a vast amount of content out there these days, I think a lot of the good thoughts, really, once you pause and think about it, really come from within. Like, big thing I believe in is TYG, trust your gut. Your gut's usually right. And so when you really trust your gut, things actually really play out well, versus, oh, well, this person said I should do this. Every company is different. And I believe in listening and getting the advice, but I think there's just something about overconsumption of content out there that paralyze.
I think you gave 3 or 4 answers there, and they were all spectacular.
Oh, wow, did I?
I was like, keep going. If you only points, keep going.
Yeah.
Are you guys looking to hire any positions right now?
We will be looking to staff up our operations team in Q2. So what I will be looking for is assistance with content creation, team members help with media, and please feel free to visit our website, kjtransmedia.com, or follow us on LinkedIn, because we will be posting. We are going to be in a massive growth stage in Q2, Q3. And for me, it's all about finding really good, solid team members. And we offer remote work, which is, I think, a plus these days, because I think a lot of people are going back into the office. I don't know what's going on, huh?
I even miss the office, oddly, and I still will not go back to it. I miss an office, and if a job requires me to go to an office, I'll say no to that job. So there's this weird little middle second. I'm an extrovert. I like to be in front of people, but I also want to drive a van for 6 months around the United States.
Yeah.
So,
you should. You can get paid to do that, Josh, if you get your CDL.
I didn't even think.
Well, that was a layup.
Okay, that was good. Yeah. And last question, and my favorite, any book or podcast recommendations, and that doesn't have to be in business. It can be marketing, whatever you want.
When I'm rereading Outliers, by where is it? What is that?
By what's his name? Adam Grant.
Malcolm
Gladwell. Not yeah.
I'm rereading it I read it 10 years ago, but I'm rereading it now for the second time at a different stage in my life. And man, it really, every chapter has me really thinking about the, kind of the differences in what makes people successful.
Yeah.
And what that looks like. And it's a fascinating book right now for me to read.
No, I think it's interesting that you brought up a book that you're reading for a second time or more than once, which I was actually just having this conversation with my friend that we were reading Man's Search for Meaning, and it's just amazing lessons that you can get in different parts of your life, because you're almost looking for different lessons, and therefore you get those lessons different. Any other book recommendations?
Well, you can see behind me, I've got Moby Dick, this leather-bound book. So there's I would say, that's kind of where I'm leaning into. I do read a lot about business books, is what I primarily read. So I would love to get into more of the leisure fun books. I haven't gotten there yet. So
all I read is nonfiction, business, self-help, and I finally got my first fiction, which is Quentin Tarantino's book. So I'm excited.
Oh, that's going to be good. Yeah.
He's my everything.
Yeah.
As we come up to the end of the episode, I also just want to give you an opportunity to mention how people can find you and anything else you'd like to end with.
Yeah, no, but just thank you so much for reaching out and having me on the podcast. Leave with a note that I think trucking's cool and everyone should explore it in different, not even just as a truck driver, but in different positions. And if you want to link up with me, I'm on LinkedIn, Jacquelyn McManus, or you can follow us, kjmedia.com. And thank you so much, Josh, for having us on.
Awesome. Thank you. I thought this was a fantastic episode. And for anyone has learned anything from the episode, please consider giving us a like or a follow so we can continue getting great guests like Jackie. And as always, thank you guys for listening. Jackie, thank you so much. You bring so much energy to this. So this is a really fun episode. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun too. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Masters in Marketing Agency podcast. I hope you got a ton of value out of this episode. And before we go, I just want to thank our sponsors, DevNoodle. DevNoodle provides marketing agencies with the ability to offer their clients unlimited website design, build, and management services with fixed monthly plans. If website design, development, and maintenance is holding your agency back from growing, please reach out to us at devnoodle.com, where we make websites easy for you and easy for your clients. devnoodle.com.